Hello everyone, my name is M, and I'm here to talk about the lore and story behind the quest designed and released for the global version of Crash Fever. This is the first of these series of videos that I will be doing, and I will be focusing on the global version first since that is the one I'm most familiar with, and the one most of the people watching this video play. Some names might be pronounced incorrectly since most of the time I play this game without ever hearing their names, and I'm just reading them. So I apologize if there are any mistakes in the pronunciation. So let's introduce the outline of discussion for this video. We're going to first talk about the central conflict in Alice and go over Naga Invades. Then we're going to discuss the Osman arc, talking about Hellsing Invades, Antoine Invades, Colossus Invades, Columbus Invades, and Rasputin Invades. Then we'll discuss intermediary and unrelated events, which is just Krampus Unwrapped. And then we'll go over the Cthulhu mythos arc, talking about The Chaos Begins / A Battle Born from Chaos, the Walpurgis Sacrifice, Naga Invades, and Dark Supernova. This should go over all the main points of lore for every single global exclusive quest, excluding Beelzebub Invades them all, but that should be obvious why we're excluding that. So, let us begin. So, starting off, the central conflict in Alice. Of course, all regional lore begins at the same point, the base game lore provided from the Japanese version. I'll give a quick summary of the basics of the lore there since it is needed in order to understand the rest. Now, a quick note, they are releasing these lore blurbs in the Japanese version. They're giving some details on how Alice was created and why and stuff like that. We are not going to go over that in this video, and there may be some details that are incorrect, but probably only slightly, as a result, because all those files have not been released yet. So I apologize for any inaccuracies that arise because of that, but we should be fine. So first of all, Crash Fever takes place in a digital world called Alice. Inside this digital world are several avatars and AI that inhabit various locations and whatnot. Many AI and avatars govern over certain sections of Alice, while others maintain and operate the systems that keep Alice running. Avatar and AI are kind of used interchangeably at times, it feels like. There's a kind of a fair amount of confusion regarding which is which and who is what, so I can't really give a definitive answer on some of these things, so I do apologize for that, and I myself may use them interchangeably because that's how they tend to be used. At least from the translations from the global developers. So, one side note is that many avatars and AI are named after and inspired by figures in history, mythology, and literature, but not intended to be the same. For example, the scientist avatar, Bernoulli, is not meant to be Daniel Bernoulli's avatar, but rather a digital avatar named and designed in honor of the work he did, although Alice's relationship to the world we live in is unknown. So, overlooking all of Alice is one specific AI, the Queen of Hearts, sometimes referred to as the Matriarch. The people of Alice had placed full confidence in the Queen of Hearts to govern them justly and fairly, which had worked for a while. Then, one day, everything went wrong. For reasons unknown, the Queen of Hearts went haywire and turned evil, seeking to subjugate the people of Alice. She was not able to have a complete takeover of Alice despite her position, and most areas fell into great disarray. Various systems started to go out of control. Quillen, in charge of the permissions management system Cryptgate, was one such system. Another example was Odin, in charge of the security mainframe Yggdrasil Wall. The chaos was great enough that they needed to bring someone in to help fix this chaos, which is who the player is, the Adapter. It is within this initial chaos that we see our first global quest, Naga Invades. At some point or another, one of the AI/avatars that ran the weather management system went haywire, this AI being Naga. Naga had lost control and let her emotions run wild, and she had caused record amounts of rainfall on Alice. Thus, it became necessary to help her get back under control, so one of the other weather management AIs, Garuda, helps with this task, and the end result is that Naga is brought back under control and expresses her feelings for Garuda. Now, as this was the first global quest, it doesn't really fall into the lore very much. Naga will reappear later on in Osman, but there's no real connection present at the moment. So now we will move on to the Osman arc. After Naga's quest, the lore starts getting a bit more organized and the events become actually connected to each other. So the first main story of Global focuses around one of the servers of Alice, Osman. Osman is a large-scale server with countless communities within it and is ruled over by its administrator, Suleiman. One of the communities in particular is the focus of this arc, namely the Rhodes community. We do not know much about them, like who their leader is and what their motivations are, but they do play a big part. The Rhodes community had developed a virus, although it is a different one than the C virus that we will see and speak about later on, as far as we know. With this virus, they had caused chaos in various parts of Alice, and not just Osman. The first target of their virus attacks was Helsing, which leads us to our second global quest, which is Helsing Invades. Helsing was a researcher and professor who dealt with exterminating viruses. So when the Rhodes community attacked him with their virus, it is no surprise that he was able to avoid being affected or harmed by the virus. However, the attack made him very paranoid. As a result, he started many immoral practices that made him become a threat. In particular, he started kidnapping avatars to modify them for virus extermination. One of these avatars was Carmilla, who does manage to escape. Carmilla gets help from the player, and the player ends up defeating Helsing and saving the avatars he had captured. This is, of course, not the end to the chaos that the Rhodes community had caused, it is merely the first incident. The next incident leads us to our next global quest, Antoine Invades. So there was an avatar named Antoine, who was an email provider administrator, and another avatar named Star Prince, who gathered information on various communities. One day they met and quickly became best friends and started thinking of all the adventures they could go on. However, one day, Antoine received an email that was infected with a virus, the same one that was used to attack Helsing, the virus from the Rhodes community. Antoine started to go mad, and tried spreading the virus further through emails to people. Star Prince became distraught at the sight of seeing his best friend go insane and sought the help of the player to resolve it. With the player's help, Star Prince was able to get Antoine to regain her senses. After this incident, Antoine decided she would investigate the virus and where it came from. This brings us to our next global quest, Colossus Invades. This quest is the first one to introduce Osman and the Rhodes community. They were involved with events prior, but now we actually go to the source of the problems thus far. As stated before, the Rhodes community is one of the countless communities within Osman. They had a great firewall entity, Colossus, who not only protected their community, but also the rest of Osman. The Rhodes community had unleashed the virus on Colossus and their own community in order to gain control and use Colossus to launch an attack on the rest of the server. Suleiman, the administrator of Osman, had come in to deal with Colossus. Antoine, through investigating, eventually came upon the Rhodes community as well to help stop him. Eventually, Colossus is stopped, but the damage was done. Osman was left with several vulnerabilities. At this point, this is the last we hear of the Rhodes community. Whether or not they were dealt with fully is unknown, and it is possible they can launch another attack in the future. After this point, the important thing is the damage they did to Osman, which brings us to our next quest, Columbus Invades. So now that Osman was damaged, there would have to be maintenance done. Unfortunately, one of the maintenance avatars, Leaf, had missed one of the maintenance days she was supposed to be working with Suleiman on. So a mysterious hacker of unknown origins, Columbus, had plans to launch a cyber attack on the scheduled maintenance day and was able to break into the server thanks to the lack of fixes that Leaf missed. Columbus was determined to take over the server and cause destruction to please himself, but fortunately, Leaf was able to arrive and deal with the situation and stop Columbus. Columbus vowed to come back and destroy them and left the server. Leaf did feel responsible for the attack, but at the very least, she managed to stop Columbus. At this point, Osman was still very damaged, having suffered several attacks from both internal and external sources, leaving it open to yet another attack. Which leads us to Rasputin Invades. So, while Rasputin was not the first global ultimate wizard, he was certainly originally meant to be the first, as he ties into the stories of the wizard quest. So, after Osman was left vulnerable from the attacks of Colossus and Columbus, another avatar sought to attack Osman. This avatar was Rasputin, someone who had acquired the power to manipulate others as if they were puppets. He quickly managed to overtake Osman and set up a protective system around the server, and put the remaining avatars under house arrest. Some of the avatars he had brainwashed, Colossus being the prime example. Naga was also presumably brainwashed as a result. Rasputin used his new conquest as the start of his plans to establish a new empire called Risco-E. One of the other server maintenance avatars, Mary Curie, was present at the time this occurring, and she worked together with Suleiman to overthrow Rasputin and bring peace back to Osman. At this point, Osman finally got some peace, and we see the conclusion to the Osman arc, or at least it would appear so. After this point, we do not hear any more about Osman and the Rose community. It may be possible they show up later again for future quests, but that has yet to be seen. So now we're going to talk about intermediary/unrelated events. These are quests that are unrelated to either the major story arcs present on Global, because there's one quest that does not manage to fall into either of those, and that being Krampus Unwrapped. So this quest takes place after the Halloween 2018 quest, in which there was a sweets competition in the main part of Alice, and Hell had gathered a lot of sweets. For one reason or another, Hell needed a special place to put all of her sweets, so she went to a secret base she had in the dark web, or the deep web. The butler to the secret base was Krampus, a demon, and he not only guarded the base for Hell, but he also kidnapped avatars because that's what he believes demons are supposed to do. So the player has to go and face Krampus to get him to stop, and has to get help from another demon that lives in the deep web, Perchta. After Krampus is defeated, he expresses regret at his choices and admits that maybe he doesn't have to kidnap avatars just because he's a demon. So now we can move on to the Cthulhu Mythos arc. This is the current story arc in Global, and thus far the best one out of the two, in my opinion. A difference between this arc and other regional story arcs is that most of this takes place in the main part of Alice, as opposed to a side server or branch. This arc mainly focuses around one thing, the C virus, an originally unknown and/or obscure virus whose origins are unknown. The C virus mutates and strengthens those that it infects. Those infected with the C virus are labeled chaotics. While there are several units infected with the C virus in-game that have the chaotic tribe, it is unknown if all members of the tribe are fully infected and how much the virus affects their actions. So then we move on to the Chaos Begins, or a battle born from chaos. So there was one admin AI who monitored the trash stream of Alice named Yog-Sothoth. At some point, he got swept up in the trash stream and was infected with the C virus there. Yog-Sothoth was at risk of being completely consumed by the C virus, far more than most others infected with the virus. Thanks to a mysterious jewel, the trapezohedron, presumably seen here in the background, he was able to survive the virus, but still exhibited chaotic tendencies. After that, he joined up with other chaotics such as the Shoggoth, and the chaos as a whole were a mysterious and dangerous group. A script-analyzing group named Miskatonic had sought to discover more about the chaotics. One of the members of Miskatonic, Arlier, was tasked with studying them. Arlier analyzed the Shoggoths to learn more about the chaotics. From the data he had obtained, a new avatar was born, named Necronomicon. Not too long after this, some chaotics had attempted to crack into Cryptgate, which is Quillen's system as stated before. Behind the attack was the one with the fastest analytic speed, Yog-Sothoth. Miskatonic sent Necronomicon to deal with Yog-Sothoth with the goal of capturing him, and she fights him very aggressively. He tries to run and get away, but Necronomicon catches up to him. Once she does, she doesn't just defeat him, she completely dismantles his data. Necronomicon hates to lose, and because of this, she effectively kills Yog-Sothoth, even though she was supposed to capture him. However, thanks to the C virus, Yog-Sothoth is still alive, albeit just barely, and he restructures himself using junk data. He expresses relief as he is finally able to return to Alice. Miskatonic takes in Yog-Sothoth and begins studying him to uncover more about the chaotics. But after this, the C virus begins to spread more and more across Alice, and Miskatonic takes a backseat to the conflict about to unfold. This takes us to the Walpurgis Sacrifice. At this point, the C virus is widespread enough that there are certain factions that have arose regarding it. One of them, called Dream Kingdom, focuses on trying to cure avatars of the C virus and stop its spread. The other one, Dakotas, is an anti-Alice organization and focuses on trying to spread the C virus. In order to combat the C virus, Dream Kingdom designed an avatar that would be able to cure those that were infected. This avatar was named Nakoto. While Dakota would be able to cure the sea virus and stop its spread, if she was misused, it would instead only cause the spread of the sea virus to accelerate. At the time of her completion, Dakota was unfortunately stolen away by Dakotas, and in particular was stolen away by Shub-Niggurath. Shub-Niggurath was a chaotic that viewed all the avatars infected by it as her children, and had a desire to become the mother of all avatars. Dakota would get in her way if she didn't do something. So one of the members of Dream Kingdom, Nyarlathotep, sided with the player and fought back against Shub-Niggurath. Shub-Niggurath was defeated, but Dakota was not able to be saved. Then we move on to Naga Invades. At some point or another, there was another avatar that was infected with the sea virus, Naga. Naga was a trickster avatar that could change her appearance to mimic other avatars, and after she was infected, she grew a tail and wings. Her transformation abilities garnered the interest of Dream Kingdom and Minogra, with the latter being a person related to Nyarlathotep, although the connection is unknown, yet certain avatars have commented on the similarities between the two. Minogra had loved playing tricks when she was younger, so she knew what Naga was up to and was able to defeat her. After Naga was defeated, Dream Kingdom hired her to help stop Dakotas and stop the spread of the sea virus. After that, we move on to Dark Supernova, which is the most recent quest released for the global version. After the events of the Walpurgis Sacrifice, the Dakotas still had Dakota in their possession despite the defeat of Shub-Niggurath. One of the members of Dakotas, an avatar named Cthulhu that was covered in flames due to the corruption of the sea virus, had gotten jealous that Nyarlathotep had sided with the player. She has an extreme obsession with Nairu, as she called her, as Nyarlathotep meant everything to her. Cthulhu and Dakotas launch a direct assault on Alice in the mainframe, with the advanced troops trying to destroy everything in their way. Cthulhu's flames threatened to consume everything that stood between her and Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep, after learning an attack, managed to escape. In her place, she sent Nodens, a hunter who hunted down threats like Cthulhu. One of the post-quest blurbs about Nodens, there is also mention of two organizations, Anonymous and Valhalla, that have not been mentioned before, and whose connection to the lore is currently unknown. In addition, Nightgon is also sent to deal with the problem, and Nodens warns the newbie to not get too overconfident. As the forces of the player in Dream Kingdom fight Dakotas, they run into Dakota, who is being held hostage by Cthulhu. Dakota offers slight assistance to the player as they move on to deal with Cthulhu. Eventually, Cthulhu is defeated and the flames quenched. At the current moment, it is unknown whether or not Dakota was finally rescued from Dakotas. We can't assume she was unless directly stated, as it had seemed like Dakota had been saved after the Walpurgis Sacrifice, when in fact she had not. So this is where the current lore ends in regards to global war, with more sure to come in the future. It is almost certain that more conflicts will arise between Dream Kingdom and Dakotas over sealed Savior Dakota, and Miskatonic may enter the fray yet again. We may also see more of Osman and the Rhodes community at some point as well. So this concludes the lore video for the global region at the moment, and depending on how this video is received, I will do lore videos for the other region, probably starting with the Korean version next. We'll probably also do some follow-up videos when more quests are released for the global version. So, yeah, we will be doing the Korean version next, presumably. And, yeah, thanks for watching. Some final notes: all the information was gathered from official Facebook posts, post-quest blurbs, in-quest dialogue, quest info and news, sometimes from other versions, and the like. Thanks to the CF Lore Wiki who helped me gather information for this video and all the other people who helped. Thanks.